Welcome to the last session of the workshop. It's a very intrepid and hardy group of folks that can make it to this last session, and also to the presenters who agreed to present in this last session. I've done it before myself, and it can be stressful if nobody shows up. So thank you all for showing up. Let me introduce you to some really great ladies. I've had the honor of working with them for a number of years. We're all kind of here local in the Texas area. So let me first introduce you to Susan Rapant. She holds a master's degree from NYU in rehabilitation counseling, has been working in the field for the last 30 years. She has lived in the Houston area since 1995, has been self-employed since 2000. And despite her long time in Texas, she still identifies as being a displaced New Yorker, but we love her anyway. She maintains a caseload, provides expert testimony for both plaintiff and defense firms. Her love for shoes and fashion will keep her working until they tell her it's time to go. So welcome, Susan.
Thank you.
And we also have Dr. Dylan Snowden. She is a GRIT, stands for Girl Raised in Texas. Her career started at age 15 when she volunteered in mental health with youth in the Calm Peers program. She did pet assisted therapy for 12 years with her Airedale, pursued her education in psychology, which led her into rehabilitation counseling. She has a PhD in counseling and behavioral medicine, admits that she has been educated way beyond her IQ. She's worked with many different disabilities groups and still manages a caseload of about 90 clients. She says that she knows a lot about vocational rehabilitation, job accommodation, and return to work. And three things to know about her is she loves to sell other people's things with their permission when they're downsizing or relocating. I'll keep that in mind. She loves to organize to die for parties, especially for herself. She loves to repurpose furniture and home furnishings from garage sales and to antique stores. So with that, I will turn you over to these very distinguished ladies, and thanks again for being here.
Thank you. Well, I just want to say this is a committed group of folks for your CEUs. So I think that's real important. And thanks for hanging in here for the end of the conference. I hope everybody had a good time, learned a lot, and we're happy to be here to bring up the rear, because vocational rehabilitation counselors bring up the rear, so especially in court. So we're going to talk to you today about nope, back up. Next slide before it.
There is no slide before.
Okay, all right. Well, do you want to talk about how we came up with it, and then I'll.
Okay, so how did we come up with this? Okay.
Yeah.
For about a couple of years now, I've been screenshotting pictures of CVs that I see in different files, and I'd send them to Dylan, Dr. Snowden, because I respect her, and I'd say, what does this mean? Have you ever seen this? What is this? Legitimately not knowing what was going on, and maybe being a little disgusted, to be honest. So I felt like our profession was diluting itself by just throwing out all these acronyms, things that didn't seem to make sense. And some of it, honestly, I wasn't aware of all the new things that were changing, and other things I felt like maybe weren't correct. So fast forward a couple of years, Dr. Snowden says, I want to present this at IARPS. And I'm like, well, I got to go with you. I want to do it too, which I didn't know would mean that we would be making a qualitative study, that we would be researching, that we would have a weekend retreat, we'd have think tanks for hours, and I'd be interviewing attorneys for information, creating a PowerPoint. But in all honesty, I've learned a lot. I feel privileged to have worked with Dr. Snowden. She has elevated me, and also to just reinforce it's part of self-care to not just work alone, and to work with each other, and to find someone you trust that you can be yourself and learn. And that's what I got out of this. So thank you.
You're welcome. So getting into this, I wonder how many of you have updated your CV in the last year? Raise your hands. Wow, I'm impressed. How about in the last half decade? That's been going around, you know. And how about a century ago?
Come
Okay,
on, you know,
yeah, there we
it's
go.
true.
That would be me too. All right. Well, you know, it's funny what we do for clients. We help them prepare their resumes, but we pay a little attention to our own. And we know how to do it, but just to take the time. But we depreciate ourselves. We don't always bring forth the qualities and be able to explain what we do well. And so the purpose of today is for us to interact. We want to help you get into your think tank moment and give you some vocabulary, but we also want to give you how we came up with what we think works on a good professional Vitae when you do expert work. So that's why we made a study out of it.
Lost our PowerPoint.
Uh-oh, what happened? Did I turn it off? Oh, good.
We're new with the PowerPoint.
Don't put anything in my hand. I have the, okay. You know, it is the last session. Don't push this one. That's what he says. Don't push this one. Okay. So, yeah, this is kind of where we got started with all this. Susan's going to talk about the methodology in just a second, but I had a couple of other thoughts. I just think we get into conundrums when even our own family don't understand what we do. And so why would we expect attorneys to know what we do? You know, we have to educate them. So our Vitae comes into that. So we wanted to know what attorneys had to think about using vocational experts or any expert. So we will go into, you want to talk a little bit about.
Click the slides.
All right.
I think we hit the learning objectives.
Okay, yeah, I'll go through those real quick. So does your CV reflect your expertise, the how and why? To refine it, that's what we're going to try to do today, or get you started on it. Learn tactics to prevent attacks on your expertise. So one of the things we really learned is how your CV follows you for the rest of your life. And so we want to get you the best shield to present yourself with this exercise today. So we're going to help you get a start on that or refine what you've already got. So our role, purpose, and intention of the presentation is to provide a roadmap for you to focus on yourselves, another self-care exercise. Why should anybody believe your Vitae? Does it meet the test of credibility? Because that's what we were finding. We looked at so many different CVs of other professional expert vocation, and we couldn't believe what we were finding. There was falsehoods and things that just didn't belong in where it should be. Do we have anybody that's not done expert work and wants to get into it? Okay, good deal. All right. So we want newbies to get you started on the right foot, and then the rest of us need to refine our art, right? It should be verifiable. That's a big word. Ethical, brief, consistent, and reasonable. So one thing you need to remember when you do your report and give your opinions, your CV goes with it, and it goes to the jury, to the judge. It gets filed. It's an everlasting document. So why it's very important to have what you want written down. Okay. So ideally, like a resume, is to connect the dots to the reader, and specifically, you are given your qualifications. Why are you the expert? Be prepared to back up at a deposition, cross-examination, every statement in your Vitae. A well-prepared, this is one of the studies we pulled, a well-prepared CV accompanies your report documenting your qualifications and answers. So when I pulled this article, they talked about, it's almost like a pebble in a lake and the waves, and it just keeps going. And so your resume kind of has that. All right, Miss Susan.
Okay, our methodology, which I kind of told you a little bit about, was we did a qualitative study. We reviewed the literature. We reached out to Seek. If you're not familiar with Seek, they do a lot of training Write that down, write down SEEK, because they do a lot of training, exercises and courses on how to be an expert, not just for vocational, but for anyone, any expert. And then and yes, and individual surveys, we had talked to 20 attorneys and how they select an expert. And then we calculated the frequency of their responses, which we're going to share with you. We did a survey development based on, we also did informed consent. Dylan did all that. I didn't do that. She was on top of that, but we did conformed consent. And Dylan also did all the legal resources to make our survey great, which was at the American Bar, Testifying Training, and Attorneys at Law magazine. And lastly is the worksheet, what we're going to talk about. Everyone's going to get a chance to just kind of think, am I staying current? Is my CV accurate? And can I make it better? So we're going to have a test. So coming here at the end was worth it because we have prizes. So we're going to pass out a pre-test. This is lowest price. Get it? Lowest price. I know it's late. Okay, so everyone's going to, lowest price is a sample CV that we combined a lot of problems and from our research of problems on CVs. And we created the ultimate CV that had some issues. Are you able to play that? We got a button. Nope. Well, it makes a lot of good music. I have an arrow, no?
Didn't download all the way.
Okay, so pretend it's playing music. Da, 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 da. Okay. Yeah, it's good. It was really good.
There it is.
Like 10 billable hours were lost trying to get that slide into this PowerPoint. So we really wanted it to go. Now that I wasn't planning for.
It does that. Click.
Yeah, somebody's gonna have to help. Okay, can you help me get that of that? So on this,
There it is.
we want people to find the errors. Up on the screen for people on demand, there's your, and it's in the handouts. Here is the ultimate CV of problems that we've seen. Just circle, highlight things you think are wrong. And we're not gonna spend a lot of time on this, but we do have a prize to see who can get the closest number of mistakes without going over.
As Susan said, this is real stuff that we pulled off of a lot of professional Vitae's examples, mixed it into one.
Yeah.
No, you don't want to wear a bra?
You need a pen.
Oh, goodness. Yes, we can do that.
There's some pens. We didn't think about that. Thank you.
Also, for those of you that are doing this on demand, we really encourage you to you'll have this in your download, and you can do the same thing these folks are doing to spot the errors.
Well, I'll give you some hints. So spelling errors is one of the common mistakes on a CV. Spelling errors is something attorneys told us. If you have a spelling error on your CV, then more than likely we don't want you because your report's going to be a hot mess. There are spelling errors on this, Wally. So as you're looking, I'm going to kind of highlight some of the things from our research that we found common mistakes, that the credentials and associations for, especially in our field, are combined as one. NRA, I don't know, many people are aware, National Rehab Association, that's listed sometimes after someone's name. That should be under somewhere else. It's an example. Inaccurate dates and information, grammar, typos, misspelled words. Your education is vague, maybe doesn't say what degree, or it's overly detailed. Like it tells you how many classes you took, how many hours that you finished, the minute you graduated, the date of your graduation, maybe a lot of too much information. Relevance to your expertise or overextension, exaggeration, and embellishment, self-promotion. The kitchen sink, you put in everything because you can. Your bias, formatting, your number of pages, having white space, easy on the eyes is something we heard, poor construction, readability, and outdated information. So those are from our research, everything we looked at, these were the top 11 mistakes. So yeah, count up on your, people are still working. People took this really seriously for the end of the day, and I'm so happy. Who wants to say, did anyone find more than 5 mistakes? More than 10? Let me give you a chance to keep counting. Keep counting, count. Because we have $10 gift cards to Target to keep everyone awake. Still working. There's a lot.
I'll give you a hint. There's over 30.
I wouldn't have given a hint. She's so nice, but she's from Texas. See, that's the difference. I would have so not given a hint. 33. Anyone have higher than 33? No, just give me a number. 35, 72.
That was.
Okay, good. Sorry.
She's asking, do you count the same as type
Yeah,
of error
like
twice?
if you've got tense issues like 5 times.
It all counts.
Yes, all counts. Sorry.
I think Susan and I have lowest price. I think we worked with her twice this summer.
Yeah, cheat sheet. Okay. I think everyone kind of gets the point, right? I mean, there's a lot of mistakes, and there's mistakes that we've seen. You click in the answer. So who?
We have a 33 back there.
Anyone higher?
Right, he gets a prize. Woo.
I counted 34.
Pretty good at proofreading.
You want to click, Dylan, so we see the next.
I counted 33, because that's as high as I could count. But this is Mike Roscoe from Michigan, and I'm I fancy myself to be a pretty good proofreader, and I really could have used the yellow. But anyway, there's a lot of errors there.
There's a lot of errors. And we took errors that we'd seen on a lot of different CVs. And of course, we exaggerated them. But some of the highlights from our research, outdated information. And what does that mean? That you haven't updated your CV in a long time. So if you're putting that you're the president of IARPS, there's nothing wrong with that if it was in 1973. But put down it was 1973. I highly suggest you put your date at the end of your CV. So when you're being questioned and they say, is this your most current, you can go and look at that right away. So we're not gonna spend a lot of time on this because we do resumes for people. And we have it in the PowerPoint, but we just wanted to show that people are doing sloppy CVs and think it's really not a big deal. Does anybody have any questions or discussion on this?
You got the next number. You had. Okay.
I have 34 too. No.
Anybody have 15 or less? It's okay to admit it. Gee, it's five. Everybody is
We
a winner.
planned that. We wanted the lowest in the.
Everybody's a winner.
So my suggestion would be when you're updating your CV, have 3 people proof your CV, not 1, 2, 3, 3 people, because we saw some basic things. And if anyone went to Mr. Leslie's presentation the first day, he talked about it as well. But statistically, the percentage of people that have errors on their CVs, we're not in a position to have an error. And we'll talk about that more later. I'm gonna click.
Okay, so we're going to talk about the forensic code in the CRCC, and the other associations address it, even IARP, and we've got that in your handout. But just note that forensic rehabilitation counselors have an obligation to present to finders of fact the boundaries of their competence, the factual basis, knowledge, skill, experience, training, and education. That's a biggie. For their qualifications as experts, and the relevance of those factual basis to their qualifications as experts on the specific matters at issue. So that's it. That's what it's got to cover, right? So that's going to be in the code. And I've seen attorneys pull the code up as part of the deposition process. So just know they're looking it up. Okay, back to you. You want to do that one?
I just want to mention, when you put your CV out there, if it has an error and you are caught with an error, whether you intentionally did it or not, it's going to be, it could be misconstrued as perjury. I mean, you can't really undo that you said something that wasn't true. So think real hard about what you're putting on there. And I don't think anyone's purposely trying to be misleading, but just take a glance and make sure it's accurate. So our survey, we surveyed 20 attorneys after we did a literature review, which there's not a lot of literature on this topic. We did find some. We had a survey of 10 questions that we asked attorneys. We surveyed 20 total, 6 were plaintiff and 14 defense, random. Dylan did 10, I did 10. We found out that your CV is used as ammunition against you. They will definitely use that to discredit you. And that a good Vitae helps you resist the challenge of cross-examination, and it qualifies you as an expert, because what several attorneys said is in a double vote challenge, you may not get to speak. And I know Dylan said this, but I want to say it again. Your CV is what's being presented to the judge or the jury. So just that even made me stop and pause and think, oh, wow, okay. So what do the attorneys want besides winning the case? These were the results that we found. Our survey findings, and we have more information, but these were the highlights I thought that people would be most interested in hearing about. The number one method, all the attorneys, all 20 said, how do they find us? How did they hire us? Word of mouth. Every single attorney said word of mouth. We had in there like directories, internet search. Some of them did other things, but it's always asking people in the firm or outside the firm. And they network with attorneys, number one. So if you've made a lot of people mad, maybe that's why the phone's not ringing, because they do talk. 16 out of the 20 attorneys said they will do an online research for experts to hire, either to hire or for cross-examination. So what that means is they are Googling you. They absolutely, so Google yourself and see what comes up because they're Googling you. Even if they get a recommendation, they're still going to Google you. And I will share, like I've been in a deposition and people have had an attorney that showed a picture of a house and asked me where that was, where I was. I was like, what is that house? And basically they were trying to show that where I worked wasn't where I was. And it was like the Google Maps had my neighbor's house. My office is a house, not my own house. And I couldn't figure out where they were going, but they were trying to show that I was lying because my site shows a picture of a house, but the house they Googled for my address was actually the neighbor, you know, and I was like, oh, I think that's my neighbor next door. And then his face dropped. What the point was, I don't know, but they're Googling you. 15 attorneys out of the 20, they keep a database of excerpts with comments on their depositions. So even if the attorney is not keeping it personally, the firm is. So it could say Wally Stanfield, they're going to only put comments that if it's like extremely good or something extremely bad. But there's a database out there. Of course, we know they have our depositions. 14 of the 20 attorneys said the CV is the first impression. The others said, you know, it's not really the first because we're getting it from word of mouth. Then we're looking at your CV. So that was kind of a pause. Like it was like, well, yeah, we look at the CV, but really our friend already told us about you. 16. Okay, this is interesting. This is worth a whole discussion. 16 want to see a photo on your CV. So one of the questions was, is it beneficial to have a picture of you on your CV? Because in our research, Seek says all experts should have a picture, a headshot, not a fishing picture, not the bikini picture. A professional headshot should be on your CV. And I said to Dylan, do you ever see that? Do you have that? And she, no. So we asked attorneys, hey, do you want our picture on our CVs? 14 said yes. No, 16 said yes. But they all said, if you don't put it on there, we're going to find what you look like before we hire you. So, and we can talk about why not all of them said yes, but yes, they want to know what you look like. So make sure the photo on the internet is updated too. They've talked about that you look one way on, and I think this happened to me. My Zoom picture comes up, you know, and then I turn the camera on. I'm like, oh, that's not my picture, and my reality isn't the same anymore. So keep it current. Top 3 issues with the CV that the attorney said that they saw was subjective characterizations, exaggerations. They call it puffery. Many spoke of puffery and outdated information. Lots of outdated information that was hard to tell. Was it outdated or was it current? 15 decide against using an expert based on the CV, even if person was recommended. 15 out of 20 had at least one expert that they decided not to use. Top ways to discredit your CV. They will Google, check your degree, make sure your license is current, see your bias, who you work for. We know that. To make sure you have relevant work experience and previous testimony. So we all know they pull your testimony and will cite it, but they will use your CV against you on a cross-examination. And sometimes I feel like they're doing that when people write a good report. So we focus a lot of time on line by line of your CV. Maybe that's just my ego thinking that's why they're doing that. I don't know, but it's happened. Top 3 reasons attorneys hire an expert. We asked, like, why would you choose me over Dylan, or Dylan over me, or Dr. Snowden over myself? Like, what makes you decide which expert you want to use? And they said credibility. We'll get past what you look like. We'll get past what you charge. We'll get past the spelling error, if there's one, not 34, if you're a credible expert. If you understand the knowledge in the field and you're current. If you have a good understanding of what you're talking about and you can explain it and teach the jury and the judge in a simple way, then you are the expert they want. Anybody have any questions on that?
CV question. Website and LinkedIn. That's where my picture is up. Always a nice picture. It's 20 years old. And I know it's raised for the C to see your.
We need the mic, sorry.
Pictures gone. We've seen pictures on other experts' CVs, a mechanical engineer, they've got their pictures on there and stuff. I'd never considered putting a picture on there. And again, if it's an outdated picture, is that really a practical thing? But do you think LinkedIn is a source for research too?
Yes, they will look you up at LinkedIn. And that was brought up. One of the attorneys said, if your LinkedIn and your CV don't match,
Right.
I'm going to use it. So if you're updating one thing and you're not updating something else, we're going to cross that. We'll cross-reference that.
And I haven't updated LinkedIn in I don't know how long.
Yeah, that was brought up. The professional photo that's current is very important because, and if we want to get into this a little bit, they will pick people. Nobody wants to admit it, but we are picked based on the way we look in the jurisdiction. If they think there's a bias, one attorney used the example, probably not on Vogue, but on engineering. If you look like a nerd and you're an engineer, I want you because the jury will believe you.
And one web page. I don't want to have a web page, and I choose not to have a web page, and I'm not a web type of guy. Is that a good thing or a bad thing?
I don't,
They didn't really care.
they didn't care. They don't care.
They're going to look it up, but it's not essential.
If they can find you, it doesn't matter how they find you because they're not really finding you by your web page. You're not losing business by not having a web page. That's what we found. Attorneys like to talk, so we got a lot of comments. So we just kind of highlighted some of the comments we thought were maybe of interest. Your Vitae is a portal to the relationship, reveals who you are, educates jury and judge. That's a quote. They also said your Vitae is the threshold to check out the expert. They said your CV should be easy on the eyes. Like you make too much stuff on that CV, you're annoying them. Just like you would expect. They want some white space on there. Attorneys love having a field day on exaggeration puffery during cross-examination. Verbatim, love it.
I noticed on Lois Price, she called herself an expert, and that probably comes under puffery. That why would I call myself an expert if I'm giving my credentials, if I'm giving my experience, or I'm naming my skills? I want you to believe I'm an expert, but I'm not going to call myself an expert. Would that be one of the mistakes, calling yourself an expert? We found the opposite.
So what happened is, and SEEK really reinforces it, we need to own our job title. So we need to call ourselves
You should
expert.
on your CV.
Yes.
Oh, see, I'm glad we found
Well,
that.
you don't say well, we're going to give some more examples about expert, but when you say you're an expert, if you're asked, you are an expert, but on your CV, you have expertise, if that helps a little bit. You'll see some.
Yeah, I don't mind saying that.
Okay, good point. But when they ask you, are you an expert? You go, yes, I am.
But make sure you're saying you're an expert on what you're an expert in. If you're not an expert, we have a big process of voc rehab. We're not experts in every single part of it. Stay in your lane is coming. Avoid industry lingo and terminology. That's frustrating. Include interest. This was interesting. Some attorneys said, we want to see some hobbies and some interests of things you do outside of work so that we can talk about that in front of the jury, because we want the jury to like you. And if you are a good Samaritan or you're doing some good volunteer work, we're going to pull that in and hope someone in the jury box can relate to you, because if they like you, they're going to believe you. Attorneys want accessibility to the expert. Some of this went off topic a little, but I thought it was really good points, and Dr. Stone and I both did. So we wanted to just share them with you, is that they want accessibility to you. They don't want that in-between person. They want you to call back. They want to know they can reach you in an emergency. When the judge says you need to talk to your expert, they want to be able to get you. One of their pet peeves. So they made more comments. Stay in your lane. The CV gets you hired. Your credibility gets you rehired. They do research your Daubert strikes. They all said that. And you know what else they said, which I thought was really interesting? We don't care that you have them. No one's ever said that. They said, we don't care. What we care about is why and did it have merit? Because if you've been doing this long enough, you probably have a Daubert strike and you might not even know. Again, go back to Googling, but it wasn't like that was a shock. That was horrible. It was it of merit? Because any attorney can try to do a Daubert strike. Doesn't mean they're going to win and it's of merit. And does it apply to their case? They don't want to be blindsided. That was shocking to me because I always thought we're doomed forever. Length of CV, there's no rule. Four pages kept coming up. 4 pages is a good, doesn't mean you have to have 4, but anything over 4, they're saying too long for many reasons. One thing was they said, don't forget, we have to attach this to all our documents, to the judge, to other side. So 100-page CV, not helpful and a burden. They will read your publication.
If you list them on.
Right. If you list them, if you're mentioned as in the publication, but you didn't write it, don't act like you wrote it. We saw that. So that's a big deal. Like if you're mentioned in a chapter of a book, you didn't write the book. Your expertise matters, explain it, and you are the expert. Stick to the title, remain impartial, and don't forget it's not your job to win the case. That came up a few times, and I think we all know that, but they were just interesting comments we wanted to share. So here we have Seek. We asked permission from Seek to do, look, we got a 510. So we just have a sample of how you get beat up.
Hi, my name is Steve Levitsky. I'm the president of Seek. I'm here today with
We're just
subjective.
cueing it to the right place. And by the way, we don't know how to make it so it goes right there. We try really hard, but there you go. This is the dangers of exaggeration.
Is that right?
Yes,
You're here to tell the truth, is that right?
yes, I am.
Is it important that expert witnesses always tell the truth?
Yes,
Always tell the whole truth, isn't that right?
yes.
And an expert witness who didn't tell the truth wouldn't be believable. Would you agree with that?
I would.
That would be a very bad thing if an expert witness didn't tell the truth, isn't that right? And would you agree with me, sir, that an exaggeration is a form of not telling the truth?
Well, could be a form of not telling the truth, yes.
Certainly, it's not the whole truth, right?
No, it isn't.
All right. Now, this is a copy of your curriculum vitae, isn't it?
Yes,
Now, on page 1 of your CV, you indicate that you've lectured throughout the United States. Those are the words that you used, correct?
yes,
All right. And have you in fact lectured throughout the United States?
yes,
All right. Isn't it a fact, sir? And the lectures that you've given are listed on page 4 of your CV. Is that a complete list?
yes, it is.
Now, isn't it a fact, sir, that you've never lectured in the state of Maine?
Maine is a small state. No, I have not lectured.
You've never lectured in Vermont, have you?
Another small state. No, I have not.
What's probably the biggest state? How about Texas? You never lectured in Texas, have you?
Texas. No.
California, that's another not so small state. You never lectured there, did you, sir?
Long flight. No, I haven't.
Florida, you never lectured there?
Another long flight. No.
Arizona, never lectured there?
Pretty warm there. No, I haven't.
Wisconsin, never lectured there?
No.
Illinois, never lectured there?
Not to my recollection.
Florida, never lectured there? Just to speed this up, is it fair to say, sir, that the only states you've ever lectured in are the 5 that are listed here on your CV on page 4?
That's true.
So when you stated in your CV, you listed that you have lectured throughout the United States, that was an exaggeration, wasn't it?
Probably.
And as we just established, an exaggeration is a form of dishonesty, isn't it right, sir?
It's not ideal.
And an exaggeration does not involve telling the whole truth, isn't that right, sir?
That's true.
And by what we've established just a few minutes ago, an expert witness who exaggerates shouldn't be believed, isn't that right?
It's not
So
good.
therefore, the jury shouldn't believe you, isn't that right, Mr. Babitsky?
It's not good.
Thank you very much. Again, a very, very simple example, but this is what you're gonna get. Steve's playing along well with me. This is the type of thing that you're gonna get if you put something in article in your CV. You really want to avoid it.
We
You
can
want to check over that CV. You want to make sure you're putting nothing in there that's gonna give avoidable ammunition to the other side to rip your head off.
I think I can relate to that. I mean, not exactly, but how that it just goes down this path that you didn't see coming that really is, you didn't mean anything by it, but all of a sudden they're going to use it against you. Anybody have any comments on the video? Yeah. Oh, we need the mic. I'll do it because you're next. I'll come back.
I guess my question, how would you put that into your CV in regards to if you've worked, like I've done vocational expert work, evaluations with NFL players who live in Pittsburgh or Houston or Vegas, and um, what I didn't put, I mainly service state of California throughout, and I have. So how would you add that?
I think that's a good question. I think it goes back to you've done several states, right? So that's important to say. That's different than just staying in one state, but you didn't do it throughout the entire United States. So it's a wording. You can either put your states in parentheses, you can list 5 states. You can choose how to do it, but just make sure that you're not saying, I've done everything. And that's what we see, that and that's on that lowest price. So I would put it in I'd just be honest, 3 states or professional athletes or
Be specific.
that's the word, specific, as opposed to a broad general statement that makes it seem like you're all over the place or done much more than you've done. We see it. I've testified at 50,000 hearings. I've seen that 100,000 Social Security hearings. And the first thing when I see that, I'm like, are you counting? Like, who's counting that? And why are you setting yourself up for that? You could say, I do it regularly. I do it monthly. I do it for 10 years on a regular basis. But are you really counting? No, I hope you're not. And do you count when they don't show up? I mean, really? Okay, so we have Dr. Snow.
Okay, so now we're going to shift into getting your Vitae. These are the main areas of your Vitae, but we're going to work on professional experience because what we found is people either over described their skills or didn't present them very well. And we want, one of the things that even Mr. Leslie said, we are finding that our profession is really getting diluted and people are becoming vocational experts that really haven't worked with people with disabilities. They just go straight into it. And so when you can be specific about, yes, I've done this, this is who I've helped, these are the strategies and action words, and we're going to get into that, it makes a big difference. So the weak spot in your Vitaes that we saw among our peers was the professional experience.
And maybe we do have quite a bit of time. So does anybody have questions before we do the exercise? I just want to make sure that we've made our point and that people are comfortable with what we're about to do.
We good to go?
Okay.
Okay, so before you start looking at your paperwork, let's talk about it. So we decided to, throw out there definitions of what our vocational rehabilitation counselor is. So we did the Texas State classification, job classification. It's very generic. It says we perform moderately complex journey level vocational rehab, involves evaluating disabilities, conducting assessments, developing rehab plans, maximum independence and employability, guidance to others. So it's pretty general. So what skills qualify you to be an expert? So you've got this in a handout. You want to list action words. One of the things we gave you some suggestions, strong, and you've done this with your clients, how to improve their resume. These were good ones to use in our experience. Managed, coordinated, motivated, supervised, achieved, launched. This is giving you some word salad to build your Vitae. Include relevant specific skills and abilities gained from your experience and education to connect you to the expertise. And so what you really want to think about is, who have I worked with? What are my success stories? What have I really done the most with? I've worked with a lot of burns. That's where I started early in my career. I'm very comfortable in that. So I want to emphasize that that's some of my best work. In the jobs you have held, what did you do best? And this is to your question. Instead of saying you're the world's greatest, you can say extensive knowledge of, or expert level of understanding in different venues. And think about yourself. Ask yourself, why should you be trusted to give opinions on the subject matter in which you're qualified? You need to really answer that question for yourself and be true to it. Because you know, attorneys can throw you off balance. Lean into your clinical experience. One of the things that we saw a lot of is just belonging to all these associations and attending conferences and education, but what do you do in your real life? So it's important. Pull out your clinical experience and put it on the Vitae. So in front of you, we're going to start you off with an exercise to start doing that. And so the first page is going to ask questions just to get you started. So if you'll look, and I want you to break out into pairs. If you want to turn around, get two people, because what we're going to do is spend a few minutes by yourselves, and then I want you to break out with a partner and then share, listen to each other and help develop the word salad, help toss it around. Okay. So we'll take about 10 minutes with each partner and switch. We'll cue you. Yes, I would love for you to, because she's a newbie, Carol.
I need some wisdom.
Oh, and she is our hero. She's been our role model.
Maybe you can give me.
40 minutes. Me too.
Now. So our peers that are doing this on demand, I really encourage you folks to take time at home when you take this course and sit with yourself and work on this, and then find a peer or someone that you work with to give you feedback to help you build your skills doing this.
Got to stay awake at the end of the day. at the
Okay.
conference.
I didn't get clear on the handouts, but we gave you the DOT description of our skill set. So you can pull words off of that if you like them. We gave you IARP's description of what we do. So it's resources of how to describe how we do what we do. So those are tools to build on that worksheet to answer those questions about yourself. So really this is, I found it hard to write the section about professional experience. If it's a Q&A, where I worked, when I worked there, all that, that's easy. But to talk about myself and say, gosh, I really do know how to do that. I did do work with that population. Get specific.
And think of it also as the attorney. I've had attorneys go line by line through my CV. Not often, but this is your opportunity to it's what you write will help you sell yourself. You know, think of it just like we tell our clients. What's on there is how you're going to explain yourself. It's hard for everyone. It's hard and it's hard for everyone. Yes, you are.
Yeah, and all brand new to me yesterday. Yeah, it's actually going on to my phone and re-logging in. I can't, well, anyway.
For this specific one, I don't know. I haven't even tried, but I'll find out.
It could just be, I timed out.
Oh, yeah. But.
Skills. Career summary.
You're on your way to be an expert. If you don't feel
Uh-oh. You get, you're missing a document. Okay, there it is. Next page. There's a whole bunch of work. That last page gives you all kinds of.
We're getting down to the nitty gritty. We brought up our resumes to see what needs to be worked on.
Perfect. You're doing real time.
I can't
stuff.
download either.
It's
It's all like,
It's making it fresh
Is it coming as like a error message?
and
Yeah.
Current.
we'll have to ask about that.
I just want to make sure. that it's fine.
Yeah.
I haven't-
Well, you have our emails too. We'll send it.
See?
We'll
And I had
we'll
set
check on
stuff
that.
mine. It's like, I don't want to admit that I do it anymore.
I do have a sense of knowledge.
That was 30 years.
So that is relevant to that.
And I think that it's important.
Yeah, we thought about that, but it's hard.
Part of it is because it's after God's heart. And I choose the part. And just stay current. I've developed many of
Pulled up their resumes on there
I know.
and they're tweaking it in real time. Did you
It's everything you wanted. Our handouts don't download, so we need to find out about that after the fact.
I know.
They're all.
And the slides didn't either. I
Mm.
sent her everything twice.
We'll fix that.
Well, but they won't watch, they don't watch the on demand for a week because they gotta format it all. So I'll make sure she has it. See, where are we?
We have 25 minutes.
Well, they're into it.
Some good points are coming up. I'm not an expert yet. Coming fresh out of school. So we need to talk about that.
Yes.
We've talked. And then what's current, I think is really what's important, like your discussion. So I'm going to give the two prizes. Two prizes are going to be for confessions.
This will have,
You want to open it up?
practical and
Yeah,
in-practice
they're still
experience, and then
in thought.
child It's forcing me to look in the mirror. And I don't like that.
No, that's great.
You've got.
Yes. I'm like season pairs.
Mostly do with they're honest.
Yeah.
So. Sorry. I'm terrible. Oh,
I just put things like copy,
well, they're pretty neat.
music, going.
Yeah,
music,
but I
music,
like-
and,
Yeah, there's no issue.
so, like, I think a 10 copies.
Excuse me. Nothing wrong with being humble.
Coached his attorney on that side, and I keep using the word disability in my resume and stuff. And Bob said that's not nice. And I said, well, Bob needs to grow some. 'Cause, you know, it's a legal term and we use it. Disabled means something in the law, and that's the term I use.
So where are you using that?
Like your variety of disabling conditions.
What does he want to use?
And I do use it in my reports too. I'll talk about disabled workers, opportunities for the labor market and all that kind of stuff. Do you use the word disability? Is that something?
I say people with disabilities.
Okay.
But
I'm
we,
looking at, this is gonna be changed. This is definitely gonna be changed. And I really like the idea of putting a date on the last.
Yeah. I learned that the date's important.
And I don't know what to do about this. All this stuff. You know, I've still done some of this stuff, but I just put updating it because I didn't want to keep track and have to actually really, because I went back to 83 when I made presentations as a kid at school.
Not present.
I think this is okay if you're comfortable with it because you have all the dates. What I see is people don't put dates. So it shows you've been active in the profession a long time, whereas other people leave off the dates. So it looks like it's current.
Yeah, I think it's important to show a linear experience.
Right.
Foundation.
It doesn't all have to be current. It just has to be accurate. I think that's something we need to bring up. Because the attorney said, I don't want to be blindsided. Right? Because someone else is going to know you did something a long time ago.
What do you think of this kind of a thing, just saying as described above, instead of repeating, you know, pretty much the same thing? Because I've had them ask, well, what's the difference between a vocational consultant and a vocational specialist? Here I call myself a specialist. Here I call him a counselor. There I call him a consultant.
Right,
Should you be consistent?
right, yes. So now,
Well,
like, okay,
you can actually all group that you've been doing it all in skills instead of just listing the employers.
You know, as a counselor. Yeah, so I moved from a counselor.
I think
Supervisor. I moved from supervisor to counselor.
but still.
So,
It gives
okay,
them a
I
lot
think
of-
I'll leave that part. I'm gonna rechange this. We got the medical
we
management
know what
services.
he,
Yeah.
they'll turn it into making. it look
Right.
design.
And are you still a counselor?
Yeah,
Okay.
So I think on mine, I put counselor / consultant.
Yeah.
So there's no, I'm not working always as a counselor.
Because of when I
I
got
mean, it's a technicality, but if someone wants to be a jerk,
and here I say over 20 years, I haven't updated this in 10 years. I've probably done more than 20 years.
me too. That's part of that confession. And-
Did you update yours because of this?
Oh, yeah. And that's what started this. And I'm still not done with it because it's hard.
It'd be fun to test, you know, the first deposition, it's a new CV and see what they're saying about it. But then I have.
And then I have this.
Still.
Excuse
Excuse me. So we have about 20 minutes and I think a lot of people are sharing amongst each other some good points. So I want to make sure we hit all those.
Yes.
Dr. Snowden. Lost my presenter. Okay, so we're going to call this next section confessions. I have 2 more prizes. So anyone want to raise their hand and give a confession about your current CV or how you're feeling about this exercise or something that's happened either in cross-examination? Now you have a prize. Okay.
You already got a prize.
Yeah, if I said.
Mike. Okay, let me get you the mic.
Yeah, I just want to share. I really am glad that actually we're talking, we're looking live at my current CV and making changes, but I think just recognizing some of the, like being on a member of, or on the board of CARP, which doesn't exist no longer, but putting the date there. or even like Social Security. There's an issue that happened with me doing Social Security work. They hacked into my system. So in actuality, I have present, but it isn't present because they hacked into my BPA and I'm trying to resolve it. So I haven't done it for a year. So I need to put a date there.
Right.
And so just those little things, but it actually, as I'm doing it, I feel like, okay, I feel good about this. I mean, I feel clean, if that makes sense,
Right.
if that's the word I want to put, like, hey, because what you said, but it's like, wait a minute, no, this is legit, this is clean, and you feel the honesty, even though I wasn't doing anything intentional, but this has got me to really look at it, critique it, and just making some changes. We were both talking here, and he's, hey, I've got to change this and little changes, but I feel good about it. So I think this is awesome what's going on. Thank you guys very much.
Thank you.
I appreciate it.
Thank you for sharing that because this is hard. I mean, Dr. Stone and I are revising ours, and I told you all the things we did in this retreat and hours and hours, and we're still not done because you really need help doing it. And it is about being clean. None of us are intentionally, most of us are not misleading intentionally, but you can see how you go down this rabbit hole that's not necessary. And it's part of self-care. Like take the time every year to just look through it and see if it's right. And if you're going to put, I saw some, I overheard us eavesdropping, your hobbies, because music, and you shared that that's on the, if they Google your name, they're going to find it, you know, just be ready to talk about it and feel good about it and know that it's accurate on there. Because if you're solid and you're confident and you're credible, it doesn't matter what you say as long as it's true. And what we're finding is people are getting caught off guard because you don't even know what's on there because you're not taking the time to look and make sure it's updated.
So,
This is a confession. Did you already?
hi, I'm exempt from the price.
Okay.
Hi, I'm Keandra and I have a problem. Um, so I am fairly new to the forensic expert side. Didn't even know it was a thing coming out of my master's program. So IARP has been a true eye opener for me. And this has been fantastic. But I was stating earlier with my partner here that this exercise has been an eye opener for me because it's forcing me to look in the mirror. And I really don't like what I see a whole lot as far as coming up with the right verbiage to put on there to not only convince a jury, a judge, and even an attorney that I'm an expert, but to even convince myself. Because I'm looking at it like, I don't think I'm competent anymore. When I walked in here, I felt great. Now I'm really trying to evaluate myself. But this is a great exercise for me that I'm definitely going to take home and just compare with what I currently have and to see if it's going to be a legit CV at this point. So I'll be the first to say that I have a lot of work to do.
Well, you point that out, and I think it's a valid point. I have my own bias. I'm going to be completely transparent. Just because you go to school for this degree and this profession doesn't make you an expert. And I look at it in terms of when people go, a doctor finishes their residency and delivers one baby, are they an expert on delivering babies? Is that where you want your baby? Do you want that doctor delivering your baby or your high risk pregnancy, or you want someone who's done it for 20 years? So it evolves over time, your expertise, and being a good counselor is different than being an expert. So it just takes time. And I kept coming to conferences. I didn't do any expert witness work, but I just sat in and just made notes and made friends and mentors and people that I could share information before I went out there and said, hey, I think I have enough experience to call myself an expert.
Got me thinking about this, but I have never billed myself as a vocational expert. My resume shows that I do casework and handle and work with clients and have been doing it for a long time. And I mentioned that I do provide expert testimony in litigated matters and have on a regular basis for many years, but that's not the focus of my practice. And I do that deliberately because number one, I don't want to be a full-time vocational expert. I also think I don't ever come across looking like a hired gun. This is all I do. And so most of my work is for defense. I'm just hardwired that way. I try to do some plaintiff work, but anyway, but I'm just saying that's how I do it. And I've had a steady stream of expert witness business for the last 30 years, but I've never held myself out or advertised as an expert witness ever.
Right. And, I appreciate you saying that because
I struggled with that
Yeah.
because, but SEEK says for purposes of this, when you're giving it to judge and jury, because this is not, your marketing tour for work in general. This is specific when you've been brought into a case, you call yourself an expert. I have a hard time too, because I'm a caseworker. I keep a full caseload, but I just happen to do expert work. But you got to do what's comfortable, and it is perfectly okay to say I am an expert because this is what the document is specific to doing, expert work. And so you want to hold that. And if you look at other CVs in other professions, it says that. And so SEEK says own your title, but be comfortable with it. So, if you got it the way it's working for you, I know I've done the same thing. I'm trying to get that word and own it too, but it's by choice, and it's as long as you explain it that you have the skill set, you don't have to call it that.
I've never really had to deal with a Daubert challenge that I know of. And I think that, I'm looked at like maybe like a highly skilled or highly experienced family practitioner, somebody who's out there walking the walk, working with clients mainly. And I think that I get a pass on a lot of stuff, and I always have, because I'm not calling myself an expert, but I've had a big following, and the same law firms have used me for 30 years and so
Right.
forth. So
and
that's just my way.
right. And I don't think that's a bad way. I think a lot of us here of the same age feel the same way. Like I don't have expert on my CV either. But I do think if you're under the gun, be ready to defend yourself as an expert. Because if you say I'm not an expert, you will be thrown out. And the reason why it's semantics. You're not getting hired because you put expert on your CV. You're getting hired because you're credible. And you know your stuff, and you can explain it. You have the education, you have the knowledge, you have the experience, and you can break it down so people understand. And you might not think that's an expert, but the court does.
And another thing that makes you an expert is that there's all those counselors, mostly at BVR, who will do everything we do in working with clients, but they will never go to the courtroom and testify to what they know. They will not. And you have to be an expert to just be able to share the information you have that helps them make decisions on damages and all of those things.
Wally, confession.
No. This is just looping back to the CV because I'm getting ready to pull the trigger and make some changes. Then I realized this one's out there. So if I go to another deposition with an attorney that's seen my old my old CV, and he says, why'd you change this, Stanfield? Am I opening a can of worms I don't necessarily want to
No.
open? Or
No. And
are you setting me up on a case that you're on the other side, Susan?
Yes, I am, Wally. No, you, and we talk about that. Your CV is a traveling document, and Dylan, Dr. Snowden, it's called it the traveling pants. They will ask you, have you updated your CV? And it's okay to say yes. And I've been asked how often. I say yearly because I have, but I have just added stuff that's changed. I've never really taken things out, to be honest. I mean, because I didn't really stop and think about it. It will travel, but you have every right to change your CV. Why did you do it? Because you had looked and seen some things were outdated. You found it hard to read. You went to a seminar. You should be changing it and know that you're still in the file, the old one. So you want to be aware of your changes because it will follow you, but it's okay to change. We should be evolving and changing.
I get asked all the time, is this your current one?
Yeah.
And they expect it because you do more stuff, So. Another question.
Oh, I was just going to add to that I wouldn't be afraid to say I get continuing education. I was just at a seminar and we went over CVs, and I thought it would be a good idea to update because I stay current in my field and I try to do the things to stay educated as an expert. And I just went to a seminar and did this. As far as your feelings about the path towards becoming an expert, I think what was really valuable to me was working under an expert for 8 years I was a book rehab counselor for 5 years, and then I worked 3 years for a personal injury kind of litigation, and then 5 years for another woman who did that. And then I started my own business. But I got to see behind the scenes and not have to testify. I could see all the things. I could read the depositions. I could see what the lawyers were going to ask and things like that. And I think that was really valuable for my experience.
And I hope this is helpful. Anything?
Got 10 minutes, so
Okay.
I'm going to finish up.
Yeah.
Can I ask a quick
Sure.
question? Yeah. What if you realize there was a factual error? Because I know that I actually called my university and I looked at my transcripts to see a certain field work practicum date. And you notice, okay, it's not 2010 to 2012, it was 2009 to 2011. Do you just update it with the new
Just
date?
update it.
And
And
then-
then they say, I got your CV from last year. Why did the dates change?
Okay.
And you
So I
just,
realized
you
there was
got
an
it verified.
Yeah.
Okay,
And one of my
Just
favorite quotes is, pencils have erasers because we make mistakes,
great.
and just own it,
Well, yeah, I'm not trying to
Yeah.
hide it or anything like
But
that.
you
I
can
just-
know somebody's going to say, what's going on
somebody
here?
just Go like, okay, this is off and just go.
Yeah, that's transparency, and we're all human. Yeah. So, it is like traveling pants, and, I've had CVs check with your lawyers what CV that they produce. I have older CVs because I've worked for them before, and then they produce it and I see, so always date your CV at the bottom because they had one and I had some other credentials and accomplishments and training, the one on the new one that actually applied to the report I did. So I said, this is not my current one. Let me provide that to you. So pay attention, especially if you've been doing it a while. So,
I'm sorry.
well, no, that's up to you. If something major changes, but yeah, no, I don't do it every year. She might.
I do it in January. It's like a goal. It's
It
just
might
to look
just
at it.
review it.
Just to look at it, to make sure it's
You're making
okay.
work for us.
I know.
All right. So story be told follows you from case to case, court to court. It's part of the selection vetting process. If you're going to be getting that opportunity to be an expert in the case, the CV will do that, accepted as qualified by the judge and jury. Like I said, especially in federal court, I was just in federal court in June. I never met the judge. The attorneys present all of the vitaes of the experts, and it has to be vetted in. And they don't even have you there to talk about it. And then the judge decides, okay, I'll let this person testify. So that's all they have to go on. So you want your best foot forward. And they did let me testify, by the way. It never goes away. Changes to a CV will haunt you if not consistent. So if all of a sudden you're this and then overnight you're this, you just be clear. It can have, corrections, updates. So my master's thesis is in the medical school at UT Southwestern. So the opposing counsel went looking for it and he couldn't find it in the library. And he says, you didn't really do one. And I said, oh yeah, I did. And here, I'll get you my copy. And they said, well, that doesn't count. And so I said, well, did you check and see if it was checked out for somebody else's research? So I called the school the next day and sure enough, they had it. I mean, a medical student had checked out because I did a pain study. So a student had it, checked it out, but he was making it look like it didn't exist. But I had to be prepared for that because he was a really naughty attorney. He wouldn't leave me alone. Date your CV, like I said, compared to old ones. For variance, you will be asked about differences and omissions.
And when I update, just to say, like, I'm not rewriting my CV. Like, if
Just
I'm
check it.
on a committee, it usually lasts a year. So I just make sure that date is right. That's the major little minor things I'm doing. I'm not rewriting my CV, just to be clear. I mean, I'm barely rewriting it after all this.
Yeah. And life's lessons as an expert. So here's our references because we really did research. IARP asked us to publish this. We might, I don't know, might haunt us. But anyway, any other discussion points? Thank you. Keep your pants on.
I think Wally had a good one that I want to talk about. The disability I think that's a good discussion. I want to know what the disability comment, using the word disability.
Yeah. Careful choice of words in the resume. Using the word disabled, handicapped, anything like that. That's, what's socially in or appropriate. I always defend the word disabled as a legal term, since we're in a legal arena on a lot of this casework that we do. So I'm not troubled by that. But I've been challenged in a deposition. Is that the way you refer to people, as disabled? And that troubled me a bit. And I just held my guns and say it's just a legal term.
I'm just curious what other people think about that. Do you think putting that you work with disabled workers or is appropriate?
I mean, all the language I was trained was you need to say people first.
Right.
So people who have a disability, but now people are starting to say people with different abilities or things like that. And I don't know what's differently able. Sure.
5 minutes.
And what I do is I just don't use disabled. I just talk about the populations I've worked with. Spinal cord injury.
Right. I was going to say, I think I use impairments a lot, a variety of impairments, mental and physical impairments, or barriers to the working. I think it's a personal preference.
What you're comfortable with.
I have a very question. So is there a general template or guideline to follow when drafting the actual CV itself? So is there a certain order in which events or items should be categorized in your CV, or preferred one?
In our, go ahead.
Have a slide with the outline, and then you can put it, it'll be online. Yeah, we have an outline of the headings, and there's no set template, but what we have found is, that's at the very beginning, Susan, I think. What we have found is you describe your skills at first and where you did it.
Most current.
Yeah.
A lot of people do it.
But this is all the things that you need on your document, but you want to be able to give examples. And, it's almost like, if I saw you doing your job, what would I see you doing? And we should be able to read that on your resume, or, visualize it. Okay. Does that help? Okay.
I mean, there's no special formula. It's what you're comfortable with, but most current on top. That was one of the things. Lowest price did opposite. That's like a standard.
Yeah, not like the example we gave you today.
Yeah, you want the opposite of that.
And if you go, yeah, that's not a good example. If you go to Seek, they have some examples you can follow for different. So there's lots of ways to do it, even one with the picture on it.
I think attorneys said they don't want to be blindsided. I would say, well, that's nice. They don't want to be blindsided, but we don't want to be blindsided. So that's kind of the purpose of doing this, is just to do some self-care, make sure you're comfortable with your CV and that you feel good about it. You feel proud about what you've done and own it. And it's okay that what you did, you were the president of an organization 10 years ago. There's nothing to be ashamed of that you're not doing that now. But don't make it look like you're doing it now when you're not. That's what's going to bite you. I think we're
Anything
out
else?
of time.
All good.